Welcome to Artistic Adventures. We're going to start a new project today, and this will be my interpretation of a Cleopatra doll. Here we go. Hello everybody. It's the end of the 6th week and the cast is gone. And if you were brave enough, you got to see them pull the pins out of my thumb joint and the thumb bone and the forefinger bone. They went straight through like this. And I posted that video yesterday, if you're brave enough to watch it. It did hurt, I have to say. So now I've got this scar and the healing little places where the pins came out. I'm still not 100%. I can't put a lot of pressure on my grip, so I can't hold things very well. And I can't reach over to these fingers yet. I also have some lack of mobility, bending my wrist this way and this way. So we're going to start slow with a project and work our way out as we go. Hopefully every day will be a little bit better, and I am supposed to be doing some therapy eventually, so that'll be good. So I promised you something big in the last video, and here it is. It's a gigantic Barbie. Okay, let me pull you up so you can see her. Isn't she pretty? She's 28 inches tall. Yeah, 28 inches. So, I had talked about doing a Cleopatra doll in the past, and I'm sort of intrigued with that. And since I saw this doll, I thought that she would make a great Cleopatra doll. And the reason I'm going to start with her is that my hand being not completely better and my grip ability being a little bit impaired, it's easier for me to work on big things than little things. So I think working on her will be easier for me as I ease back into the mobility of my hand and the strength of my hand. And I think Cleopatra will be a fun project. So I have a couple of options. I have a backup plan. I'm going to try to use the hair that she has, and I'll show you that. That'll probably be in the next video. But I do have some hair ordered just in case, because I'm not sure that my plan is going to work out because it's an adventure. And the other problem I have is with these dolls is they're always so smiley and they have these huge grins, and that really doesn't lend itself to these historical characters who, you know, were, I don't know, I kind of think they should have a more thoughtful expression, or at least not this huge grin like everything's great, you know. So we're going to have to work on how we paint her to minimize this grin a little bit. My camera keeps cutting off for some reason, so I'm going to pick up where I think I left off. Is that she does have rooted eyelashes. And the way I want to do her eyes, because I want to give her a look that's not quite so open-eyed and cheerful, is I want to have her eyes a little hooded, which means the lash line would be lower on the lid. So I'll probably have to take these out and come up with a way to hide the holes, since these aren't glued on, where the eyelashes are rooted, and then hopefully I can camouflage that with the elaborate eye makeup that she typically wore. And I say typically because, you know, I have to somewhat go by the contemporary modern look, although I do have some pictures to show you a little bit later on that are more of the time, or closer to the time that she lived. But, you know, I think that given what we see in the ancient paintings or drawings of that period, they did have more elaborate eye makeup. So I think I can hide that. And just to show you a little bit more about this doll, let me see if I can, oh no, that actually is as far out. Well, that's as far out. Let me back up just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so she comes with this dress. Okay, this is driving me crazy that my camera keeps going off. So anyway, okay, so her arms do have a ball joint here. And they do have a joint to bend here at the elbow and a joint at the wrist. Her legs, however, are only jointed to spread about that much wide, and they do not bend at the knees. And they're just a hard plastic. They're not even a soft plastic. The other thing I wasn't that happy about is that her shoes are molded to her feet. But I think I can make use of this design to have a sort of Egyptian type look. I'll have to get rid of the B for Barbie on there. Yeah. So anyway, this is the doll we're going to be using, and I did get her on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description box for you to look at it. And now I want to show you some of the materials that I have looked at from my stash. And you'll see my Blythe girls are still back there overseeing the project. This is a piece of gold lame that I had in my stash. It's not even a yard probably, although it's cut at an angle, so I might have almost a yard on one side, but not on the other. So I really think of this fabric a lot when I think of Cleopatra. I don't know why, maybe from the movies, but that's one piece of fabric that I'm thinking about using. And then the other piece is this white satin that will drape very nicely. So I'm thinking that that may work for something in her attire, maybe the dress part. And then I do have a couple of other pieces, which, let me get these. This piece, which I love this color, and it's, you know, it's a shiny color. It's sort of an aqua teal color that reminds me of that era for some reason. And then I have this is a scarf, a knit scarf, but it's very gold looking, so I'm thinking I may be able to use that in some way to decorate the costume. So of course she's going to have, you know, the Egyptian dress costume. She'll have a headdress. She'll have a hairdo, you know, with the bob cut, and then I want to make a headpiece that has braids and beads on it, and then I have to have that cobra, you know, sticking up on the front of the headpiece. So probably be making that out of maybe polymer clay. And the shoes, I'll probably come up with a way to paint those, and I'll have to come up with a way to get rid of the B on the side. And, you know, there will be some jewelry and other fabulous things for Cleopatra to make her complete. But before we get into the actual making of the doll, and because I'm still not 100%, I'm going to spend the rest of the video talking about her history, which, you know, I love to talk about some history. So we're going to talk about some history. I'm going to show you some pictures. There's a lot of people who have played Cleopatra in movies, lots of painted works that depicted her life. She's a fascinating person, just like some of the other people that we've done, like Marie Antoinette and Queen Elizabeth. So obviously she would have been the focus of some artistic creativity who wanted to depict her in certain ways. So we're going to leave this live part here, and I'm going to go to the editing room and show you some photos and give you a little history. Stay tuned. So what did she really look like? The picture on the left is more accurate given that she is from Macedonian or Greek descent. This is a depiction made by a university professor who used all the tools at her disposal to come up with a more realistic look of Cleopatra versus the picture on the right, which we think of. That's Elizabeth Taylor from her movie. And so that's why we're going to be using a darker skin doll. I think also there are some sculptures such as this that give us a look at how she might have really looked. This came right after she lived, and is recorded as a Ptolemaic queen, which she was, and maybe this is not exactly her, but it could have been her. So we can, you know, get an idea from that of the hair and the headpiece with the cobra, which I gotta have that. Yep. I first started thinking about doing a doll when I saw this picture. I've always been fascinated with Cleopatra, and this picture sort of spurred me to think about her again. I don't want to recreate this costume because I don't think it's really realistic, but I'm not trying to be completely realistic, but I just would rather do something a little more what I have a vision of. She was such an interesting person. She spoke 7 languages. She wrote books about medicine, and she knew how to make maps, and um, she just was very intelligent, and that's how she was able to talk to people like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony and get them on her side back in the day. This costumes that I'm showing you are sort of symbolic of things we've seen over time as to what she might have worn. Of course, we're going to do our own version, but they do give us some flavor with the white and the gold. There have been a lot of actresses who have played Cleopatra in films, and of course the most famous was probably Elizabeth Taylor for her film. I think it was in 1963. It's a 4-hour film, which was kind of crazy for today's times, and it was at that point the most expensive movie ever made. Another person who played her was Claudette Colbert. I don't have her picture, but I do have this dress that she wore in the film, and it was black and white, which is kind of sad because that's a really beautiful green color, and I love that dress. There were a lot of fashion imitations following the movies of Elizabeth Taylor and the other people. This is actually Vivien Leigh, who I'm going to have to go watch this movie because I don't really remember it. She's obviously famous for her role as Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. And as I said, lots of fashion ideas came from the popularity of these movies. Something like this dress, which is not antique, but reminiscent of the styles that people were seeing in the movies. And the other thing is the eye makeup, which this is actually a current picture. So I'm going to try to use this sort of style to cover up those holes where I have to pull the lashes out. I can use the dark lining that they used back then, and I think I'll be able to hide it. And I'm just going to go with my idea of sort of the typical costume, but add my own flair as usual. I do like the gold, the white, and the blue as colors for the costume. And we'll get started on that next when we work on the face up and probably a little bit of the hair. And then we'll move on from there to the costume, the face, the shoes, the jewelry, and the other accessories. So stay with me, and if you haven't already, please subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Thanks, and bye.